Welcome to the Girl I Dare You podcast, a podcast created for dare divas like myself who have no problem embracing who they are while being challenged to become mentally, physically, and emotionally secure. I'm your host, Naishia, but you can call me Peaches, a certified dare diva here to dare you to be the absolute best version of you there is. Welcome to the Girl I Dare You podcast, a podcast created for dare divas like myself who dares to flee their comfort zones, go after their dreams, ditch their fears, and go after what God's purpose is for our life. We are here to be emotionally, physically, and mentally free. And speaking of being mentally free, I thought that it was so important that regardless of my regular schedule of podcasts, I decided to make a pivot and go into a series about mental health, something that I feel like is so important and so imperative to go into during this time in our nation where we're experiencing such an increase in mental illness, suicide, and depression. So today, I thought I'd bring on one of my fellow Dare Divas, a very special guest, a licensed social worker, the founder of the Crown Her Foundation, and one who is an advocate for mental health. Please help me welcome my very good Dare Diva, Tiffany Roy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I'm so excited to have you here. Yes. And I know that we haven't had a long time to talk about things, but I felt like I had so much happening. I was thinking I need to talk about relationships. We're going towards Valentine's Day. And then I was saying, but it's Black History Month. Yes. And I had all of these different things going in my mind for where I should go and where I should pivot during this series.
Yes.
But I couldn't help but to think about the importance of mental health.
Yes.
And I thought it was so important that because I'm not a professional in that industry, to have someone come on that is a professional and an advocate for mental health, because it's something that we don't all know about, but we've all experienced something, whether it's on the up end or the downhill of our mental health.
Yes.
So thank you again so much for being here. I wanted to first allow you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about Tiffany and who she is and what she represents.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Tiffany Roy. I am a licensed social worker here in the state of Michigan. My specialty is mental health. I am an advocate for women, all women, and men. My journey first started about 13 years ago. I dodged into the healthcare field outside of mental health. And then shortly, I decided I wanted to do social work.
Wow.
So,
and what made you make that pivot into social work?
Well, it started with my upbringing. You know, I had witnessed so much growing up. Mm-hmm. I had experienced so much in my personal life. It strengthened me. You know, it gave me what I needed. It gave me that fuel. You know, I began to pick up the techniques and the tips needed to advocate for other people.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. And talking about that, advocating for other people, when you go into social work, yes, it's a very selfless job.
It is.
It's one of those positions that literally you walk in there with no matter what you have on your shoulders or what monkey you have on your back.
Yes.
Your job is to advocate for someone else.
Yes.
Talk about what type of mental state of mind you have to be in order to sometimes put your own feelings aside to advocate for others.
Well, how I deal with advocating for others and placing my problems aside, you know, you have to remember, first and foremost, you're a professional. Mm-hmm. So things that I deal with, I tend to handle them and sit them and then pick them back up when I have time. But when I am in a space of advocating for other people, it's about them. Mm-hmm. You know, it's about finding a solution, mm-hmm, you know, and it's about providing the tools needed to heal.
Got it. Now, there's a discrepancy between mental health and mental illness. Mm-hmm. And many people think that because you are an advocate for mental health or because you're serious about mental health, that you are having a mental illness or that you're having a mental breakdown. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us, what is mental health?
Mental health is the psychological well-being of the mind, in which your behavior or your reaction to anything that's affecting you right then and there in that moment, you lose control. The illness is the disorder, which is your schizophrenia, your schizoaffective, your anxiety, your depression, your PTSD. Those are the disorders.
Got it.
And that's when a therapy is needed. That's when medication is suggested.
Wow.
So there's a difference.
Yeah, there's a major difference.
We all deal with mental health in some way or form, or some capacity.
Wow.
Yes.
So honing in a little bit more on mental illness.
Okay.
Because I think that because our society are a little confused about mental illness and mental health and what it's like to actually check in about your mental health, which is also today's episode. I dare you to check in because I think it's so important that we are self-aware of where our minds go. Yes. So I did a study.
Okay.
And during that study, according to the National Association of Mental Illness, 1 in 5 people, adults, deal with mental illness. That's a pretty popular number.
It is.
That's a pretty popular number.
It is.
So express to me what that looks like for society, knowing that in a group of 5 people that one of us could possibly be dealing with mental illness, and what is a good way or an effective way for somebody to check in?
Okay. I would start with what it looks like. What that 1.5% looks like in 5 people is, I'm the strong woman.
Uh-oh.
That's what that looks like.
Uh-oh.
I'm the strong man. I can hold the world up, and I can't be pushed down, but yet I have my mental capacity behind me that I have to handle, and it goes unhandled. You don't receive therapy. The resources is a lack of. That's what that looks like.
Wow. So you're telling me that the person who looks the strongest in the group may actually be the person who's mentally weak in the group.
Absolutely.
Wow. In what capacity? How often do we see that, though?
This is every day. It's covered every day. We see it in social media.
Yeah.
Well, that's another entity of what we can talk about.
Yeah.
We see it on our jobs every day. We see it in being parents, being spouses. We see it in being the stronghold for our children. It's out here. We see it. We handle it. We deal with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And would you say that, speaking about social media, would you say that social media has definitely played a part in the increase that we're seeing in mental disorders?
Absolutely. I feel like social media opens up that broad window for imposter syndrome. That is something that I have suffered with, as I shared with you previously, with just not feeling like you're good enough. Your focus is on the next person's angle, and you forget about the lane you have created for yourself. That's often ignored, and so disorders like that.
Wow.
And
can you talk about the imposter syndrome? Can you dive into that? Because we're hearing it a lot, but no one, and we're quoting it, but no one has really dived in to let us know, number one, what is imposter syndrome? Are we dealing with them, and how to self-evaluate ourselves? And I won't say diagnose, but I'll say self-evaluate ourselves to know, wait a minute, I could be dealing with something because there is this lane of social media and this vein that we're in, that if somebody's doing something on social media, that we feel like we have to kind of keep up with them. And so now we're deviating from God's plan for us because we're trying to fit what looks like is so right in somebody else's life. Yeah. So tell us exactly, can you dive into what imposter syndrome is?
And I can talk about my experience as well.
Great.
Imposter syndrome is the inability to completely be yourself at full capacity.
Okay.
You completely ignore who you are, what your purpose is, what your plans are, to fit into this category. That's what imposter syndrome is. You stray away from your best potential. It's ignored. It's ignored constantly. And my own experience, back when I started Wayne State University, I started at 30. Okay. Of course I had imposter syndrome. I'm in a class with 17, 18-year-olds, trying to find my way. And then not to mention, I was forced to study 10 and 20 times harder than the next student. You know, not because of me experiencing imposter syndrome, because I was looked at different.
Wow.
And then being the only Black woman in my class.
Wow. So that's so important that we pivot, that we pause there for a second.
Yes.
Because what I'm seeing in social media, and not just in social media, because I don't want to make social media the source for all of our insecurities and the source for everyone's imposter syndrome or depression, whatever. However, I will say that there's this thing of, well, if they're doing it at this age, why am I this age and I haven't reached where I should be?
Yes.
And so what we do is we stop. Because now we're feeling like, well, I'm off track.
It's competitive.
Yeah,
it becomes competitive,
and it creates an insecurity in us.
It does.
That if I didn't, well, this person on social media is 25 and they've accomplished this,
yes,
and me at 32, I'm too late, because now we've allowed society to dictate our path,
yes,
instead of actually acknowledging the path that maybe God put us on, that may or may not have been the same route that they took.
Absolutely.
So we start to go in circles thinking that we're supposed to fit into this box that everybody else has some way compiled themselves in.
Yes.
Can you talk about, as a social worker and just as being a millennial Black woman, how you're seeing a change maybe in our women's confidence because of what we see, what's portrayed on social media?
Yes. You know, and I speak with a lot of my clients about this, you know, and there's so much misconception when it comes to, you know, what we're discussing. I feel like, and even with social media, and like you said, being a millennial Black woman, we forget our purpose.
Come on.
You know, we forget that we are the dynamic.
Wow.
We set the tone.
We do. We do.
Know? And so...
Yeah. So, like you said, we set the tone. And I think that's where the reason I started the Girl I Dare You podcast is to give women the motivation to stay in your lane and excel in that.
Yes.
Because what happens is we start examining everybody else instead of excelling in our own purpose.
Yes.
Instead of excelling towards our own destiny.
Yes.
And we've stopped to say, oh, this person is doing this, or this industry is already oversaturated, or this person is already doing this. Why should I?
Yes.
And so we've deviated and neglected our purpose because we're busy focusing on someone else's.
And that's true.
And so, and then there's this idea of perfection.
Yes.
We see these moments of perfection and feel like and now we've devalued, in a sense, our path because of what looks perfect on someone else.
Yeah, and we do that often.
Wow.
We see it often. I think it's very sad, you know. I think it's very unpromising. You know, I definitely feel like, you know, we have to step into our own authenticity.
Yeah.
You know, at this point.
And would you say that, do we know what authenticity is anymore, considering what we see?
No. Sadly, no.
Wow.
It's often ignored. We don't.
Wow.
No.
Wow. And I agree with you. And I think that and I agree, not saying that we're ignorant to authenticity, but we're basing what we should be off of the inauthenticity of everybody else.
Yes.
They're not real and they're not even secure in their lives. No. And here we are comparing ourselves to them, thinking that they set a tone for us.
Yeah. We're looking at a shell. We pay attention to the shell and not what's in the shell.
That's good.
You know?
That's good. Because if we only knew, it's just like, for instance, we all wear makeup, and I love makeup. Don't get me wrong.
I love a good beat.
Don't get me wrong. I love makeup. However, we've become so addicted to what it makes us look like that when we go home and we take that thing off, are you still in love with that woman that's staring back at you?
Yes.
Do you still like that woman who looks you in the mirror?
Yeah.
When everything else that everybody else is attracted to is gone.
It is.
can we still look in the face in ourselves in the face when we get home and still be in love and still be just as confident when we look at ourselves in the mirror?
And, I would like to touch on that a little bit. I think the confidence starts in our younger selves. Some of us wasn't given the support of having confidence at our younger selves.
Yeah.
And so we develop confidence.
Yeah.
And some of us put our confidence in men.
Talk about that.
Or women.
Yeah.
Talk about that. And that shouldn't be the case. It starts from within.
Yeah. And we've allowed social media and so put it this way, we've allowed society to validate our worth.
Yes.
Instead of already knowing our worth and understanding the value of what you already bring to the table.
Oh man, talk about value.
Understanding that value. Like we've waited for, how many of us have waited for somebody else to say, girl, you can do that, before we actually do it. You knew you could do it.
Yeah. Yep.
You knew that you could do it already.
Absolutely.
But it was something about when the next person said you can do it that for some reason added value. Yeah. I think that lack of security in yourself is something that has allowed us to kind of place that validation that we have into men and into everybody else, because we don't think that we're worthy until somebody else adds the price to it. Until somebody else says, oh, no, you're worth that. It's almost like applying for a job saying, I'll take 15. You know you wanted 30. You know you wanted $30 an hour. But because they only offered you this, you for some reason, you felt like, oh, I should just settle here.
Yeah. That's another thing, settling, I should just settle. Why settle? You're the full package.
Come on now.
And that's another thing that we want to teach in the Crown Her Foundation. Market yourself, at your highest capacity.
Come on.
Believe in yourself. Take control over your mental health. Go find resources. Be a resource.
Wow.
Yeah.
And speaking, going back to mental health, and the reason I feel like speaking about worth is so important when it comes to mental health is because I think that once we understand our value, that some of the things that we've allowed us to go into depression and low self-esteem, anxiety, some of those things will slowly begin to go away once you understand your value.
Oh, yeah.
But outside of that, mental health, I feel like there is this silence in mental health that when I'm going through something, my fear of being judged for going through it sometimes surpasses my vulnerability to check in.
Yeah.
So I don't want to check in because I don't know what people will say, and we haven't created a safe enough space for women or people in general to go in and check in. Yes. What are some effective ways to check in? And how do you know, put it this way, instead of, because I understand that dealing with thoughts of depression, suicide, anxiety, or things of that nature can be hard. What's an effective way to seek and see if your girl next to you is going through something? Like, what are some of the signs?
You know what? When we're talking about signs and symptoms, sometimes it's hard to identify.
Got it.
My best judgment when it comes to this is check in. Call a friend, check in anonymously. Yeah. There are crisis lines. Yeah. Your close friends, your spouse, check in with somebody.
Wow.
Don't worry about being judged. Life is worth living.
It is.
Life is precious. It's true. You have to be true to yourself. Pick up the phone.
Right.
Pick up the phone, send a text message, send a smoke signal, whatever you got to do.
Exactly.
Pick up the phone. Do not go throughout your day ignoring the feeling of anxiety, depression, or even thoughts of suicide or homicidal ideations.
Yeah. You know what?
So I would say check in.
That's overlooked.
It is.
And not to negate the suicidal thoughts, because I'm going to dive into that.
Okay.
But like you said, the homicidal thoughts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Of wanting to hurt someone else. Yeah. I think that ability to check in with somebody is so important.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought of these things. of ways to check in with your friend. We always ask, girl, how you doing? How you doing? Right?
How you doing?
And our natural reaction, I'm good. I'm good. So I think we should change that question.
How are you feeling?
How are you feeling? How are you feeling? Because I can be doing good, but feeling a mess.
Yeah.
Feeling a mess.
That's the silence behind it.
Yeah.
That's silence.
Yeah, I can be smiling. I think that this is another thing about social media. Oh, girl, they was on vacation last week. Girl, they good. They just posted that they was in Hawaii.
You're not good.
But you don't know that she was ready to jump off a ledge. You don't know.
Yeah.
That even behind her smile, that she was dealing with something deeper than that.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes our smiles are camouflage.
They are.
Some of it camouflage is what we're really feeling.
It does.
Wow.
I agree. It does.
And what would you say? I was thinking that I said if I was number one, find somebody safe.
Find a safe space.
Find a safe space. Come up with a code word. You know, like Kevin Hart, like pineapples. Pineapples. Pineapple. Something that lets you know something going on.
Yeah.
You know, I can't say it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But something is feeling. I'm feeling an imbalance. I'm feeling this is my word for you. Like, hey, go get somewhere safe so I can talk to you real quick because it's something on my heart. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, text the smoke signals.
Oh yeah. And you know, I tell my patients the code word is uneasy.
That's good.
Uneasy is broad. You can't judge uneasy.
Yeah, you can't.
You know, but from a professional standpoint, we know what uneasy means.
Yeah.
You know, so
wow.
Yeah, I think a code word would be a smart tool to use.
Yeah,
amongst girlfriends or family members.
Like, listen, my son, it's so funny. My son, he plays Fortnite, and they play online.
Okay.
So I noticed that every time I walk in a room, my son says cheese balls on one. Why do you say that every time I walk in the room? He's letting his friends know.
Mama's
adult
in the room.
supervision, stop cussing.
Okay, mama's in the room.
Right. And I thought about that thing and said, that's real smart. I thought about it. I said, you know what? You just opened my eye to something.
Oh, yeah. It's a code word.
That it was a code word to let you know that something was present. So what if we as girlfriends did the same thing? Listen, I'm having thoughts present. I'm having a feeling that's present.
Okay.
That's not normal. It's something that's here, and I need to talk about it. And I'm just when I say this word,
oh yeah,
know that this is a time where I need your undivided attention.
I need my girl.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and starting with that is empathy. You have to be empathetic.
Yes,
nurturing and supportive.
Yeah.
In that moment in time, your thoughts don't matter. It's about securing that friend and seeking assistance and help.
Wow.
Right then and there. You have to be an ear. You have to be an ear, and you have to be a soul in that moment.
Yeah. And I think that with anytime that we're talking about anything as vulnerable as our mental health, I think the number one way to go into that is just compassion and empathy.
Yeah.
Just compassion and empathy. You don't have to have the answers.
No.
You don't have to have the answers. You don't always have to have a source or a way to get out of it.
Say nothing. Sometimes nothing is an answer. Saying nothing is an answer.
Wow.
Just be present.
Can you talk about that, though? Because I think that many of us don't know how to be that.
Yeah.
Many of us don't know how to just be that present friend, because when we around each other, it's like, let's take a selfie to post. And sometimes I was like, I just need you in this moment.
Oh, yeah. I've experienced situations as such. I won't get too personal about it, but I've experienced situations where I had to be the superwoman, for a friend, the social worker before a social worker.
Right. Exactly.
And I had to show up. I had to show up first. Yeah. I had to make sure I was well, because if I'm not well, we're not well. If a friend is calling me in a crisis, right?
Right.
And so in my means of being present, I was there. I was an ear, and I listened.
Yeah.
And when you listen, you find out, what was never discussed or covered, then that's when the PTSD, the post-traumatic, of that friend arises. You begin to listen,
when you use PTSD, I think it's important that we clarify post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes.
Because we hear PTSD and we immediately think, oh, well, we only hear about that in vets. We only hear about that in men who went to the Army. We've only heard about that and people who've had super, super traumatic experiences. You have youth and children who are dealing with PTSD, and it's being overlooked.
It is being overlooked.
Can you tell us, first of all, what is PTSD? Can we make it clear?
PTSD is post-trauma stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay. And what are the characteristics of that? What is one to be diagnosed? I know that technically you're not a doctor and you don't diagnose, but what are some symptoms, or what are some of the causes or symptoms that post-traumatic stress disorder would put out to the world?
Okay. I would say this, reliving in the past. I would say, for instance, going to war and being shell-shocked. Or a car accident.
Gotcha.
That's post-traumatic disorder. Walking into a classroom, a child, as a toddler or school-age child and being laughed at, that's post-traumatic. That follows on in that teenage and adult life. That is post-traumatic.
So you mean to tell me bullying can cause PTSD?
Absolutely.
That's we
see it every day.
That's essential to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so important to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we need to check in with our babies because we're wondering why a lot of stuff is happening in the youth.
Yeah.
And not acknowledging that this baby may have went through something as young as preschool.
Oh, yeah.
That's replaying.
Starting at age 3 to 17. 21.8% of African American children are bullied. Wow. Yes, untreated post-traumatic disorder. Yes.
So you believe, and I believe this too because I'm an advocate for youth.
Yes. That
bullying is something that needs to be treated.
The number one thing that need to be treated. Absolutely.
That's so key.
It is key.
That is so key. That bullying should be treated.
Yes.
Not so much just acknowledged, because you can acknowledge, oh yeah, you got bullied, so what? But being treated means I'm actually taking time to nurture the trauma that bullying experience could have caused.
Yes. And that carries into adulthood, which is sad, Wow. And then it becomes hidden, which is hard to identify as a grown man or adult woman. Yeah. Yeah, and then not to mention we're in COVID.
Come on now. I think we all got a little bit of PTSD from COVID.
Yes. So COVID has opened that umbrella, most definitely. If you have never experienced any mental health issues, now we do.
Yeah.
The feeling of the unknown, we're losing family and friends left or right.
Yeah.
We're not knowing if the shot is effective, the vaccination is effective
or not. We don't know. And don't get us wrong. We're not telling anybody to get anything or not to get anything because we believe that you should do what's best for you.
Yes.
You should do what's best for you.
Yes.
However, I believe that all of those factors play a part into something that's happened to us all mentally.
It does. We're wearing masks every day.
And it's not, it's not normal.
It's not normal. It's not normal living. No, it's not normal.
It's not normal, but it's become our new norm. And I think that shift in our culture, that shift in our being has caused all of us to go through something a little uneasy.
It's uneasy. Absolutely.
It's made us all uneasy.
Our nurses, our caretakers, our physicians, our social workers, we gowning down and gowning up and masking and, we still have to provide a service,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I've been blessed to live through 2 COVID experiences.
Amen. Amen.
And I had COVID twice. And like you said, that feeling of the unknown hearing some of the worst situations, and you're in this thing and you're like, how, some things that how you got it, and I don't even know how I got this thing, and now I got to worry about if it's, it does something to our mental. It does something to our mental. Would you say that we might need therapy after COVID?
Child, let me tell you. Everybody needs therapy.
Say it again.
Everybody needs therapy.
I think that's so important. I got a hoodie made, y'all. And
check it out.
It says Jesus, coffee and therapy. Because everybody knows me, I love coffee.
Yes.
I love Jesus, but there is this misconception that if I got ministry, Jesus, and church, and if I'm a Christian, I don't need no shrink.
Listen.
I don't need no therapist.
Not a shrink.
I don't need no therapist. I go to church every Sunday, baby. God uses people.
Yes.
And can use a therapist to save your life. Can
Absolutely.
use a psychologist or a psychiatrist to save your life. God uses people. Those professions are something that God has placed in all of us. He's using you to be a social worker. Yeah, you got the education.
Oh, yeah.
But he's using you in that capacity.
That is my testimony.
See? Yes. And I think that sometimes we get a bit, girl, I go to church. I don't need no therapist. Baby, if you feeling some kind of way, call Jesus. I guarantee you, he's got a therapist in his directory that can help you. So I am an advocate for people actually checking in. Checking in. If you don't know a therapist, find one. Get a therapist. And not every therapist may be for you, but you may need to seek out somebody that you can call when you're having, and then that doesn't have to be a weekly thing. Yeah, but if you're just like, maybe I need to talk to somebody. I can't keep a man. Maybe I'm dealing with some PTSD.
Listen, there are different entities when it comes to therapy. You have sex therapy. You have psychotherapy. There's adolescence therapy.
Yes.
There are several different therapies that are offered and beyond. It's so many I haven't named, but mental health therapy, of course.
And I think that's important to know.
It is.
That when we think therapist, it doesn't mean that you're crazy.
No, we don't use crazy.
No,
we don't use crazy.
You're not crazy.
No.
There's no such thing as that when you're trying to make sure that your mind is intact, when you're trying to make sure that you're healthy mentally.
Yes.
And we've all had moments or experiences that could have caused us to go down the wrong path.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. And people often make a mockery of mental health.
Wow. And I think that's so important. And before we get off of here, can you tell us about the importance of understanding your mental health and what's the signs that you may need to check in?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Follow your first gut.
Okay.
If you are feeling uneasy, if you are feeling like you cannot put your trust into a close family member because you feel like you may be judged. Mm-hmm. You feel like your concern may be laughed upon or not even taken serious.
Wow.
There is a hotline to call for mental health.
Do you have that information?
I do not.
Okay. Well, listen, we're going to put that information up on the screen.
Yes.
So we're going to put that information on the screen because those hotlines save lives. They save lives. Don't think that there's nothing wrong with you calling a hotline, dear divas. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. But and finish us off. I'm sorry to cut you off.
And you know what? To be exact, there is a Veterans Crisis Line.
Okay.
That is listed.
Okay.
And then as well, I believe there's another one. It's 1-877-877-HELP.
Got you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you can leave us with today? Because listen, we got to have Tiffany Roy back because she gave us so many good nuggets.
Thank
you.
And
mental health is so important to myself and her. And I think that she has so much more to share with us when it comes to really diving into mental health.
I do, yes.
That I don't even think we could have possibly gotten it all done in one episode.
Wow.
So, but I'm so grateful for you. And I know I want to talk more with you about some of your experiences and your decision to go into social work before we get off of here. Can you tell me what made you, because that is something that as in the Girl I Dare You podcast, that's so important to me, women who dare to go after their dreams. And tell me what inspired you to be a social worker?
What inspired me to be a social worker was, as a younger girl, I experienced having everything taken from me. I had to fight young, not physically, but emotionally. You know, as I grew, I was able to recognize and identify, areas of where I needed help.
That's good.
Did I get therapy? No. Guess what? I wasn't able to identify, that I needed help. Yeah. Primarily, my profession of choice was nursing, but I found my passion in social work because I felt, and I started with children, so I felt that I seen me in another youth.
Yes.
And being there in the presence of watching another adolescent have lack of resources, it built me, and I couldn't give up on social work. Social work was it. I wasn't looking for anything else. I owned it, and I pursued it.
Wow.
And I chose that's so social work over nursing. Absolutely.
You know what? That's a word for somebody.
Yes.
Because some of you are in professions, but not in your purpose.
There you go.
And so I think that it's important that you're not afraid to go after what God has created you and destined for you to do. Don't get stuck in your comfort zone, because your comfort zone is that you're in a particular profession.
Yes.
Don't get stuck there, but allow God to use you to put you in a place where you're most effective. Yes. And I think that that's what God did with you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I wanted a more interpersonal relationship with the population of choice and the clients that I serve. I love what I do. I advocate what I do.
Yes.
And as I always say to you, I am an advocate for women, but I am the mind behind mental health.
Wow.
And this is a part 1 and 2 of what the Crown Her Foundation will represent.
I'm so glad. And I'm so glad for what the Crown Her Foundation will be representing. Wellness, yes. Mental wellness and health. Thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you want to leave us with today?
Yes, you can follow me at Tiffany So Official. Yeah. And you can follow the Crown Her Foundation on Instagram.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, y'all know, you're certified Dare Diva. I got to either dare you to do something and leave you with an assignment.
All right.
So number 1.
Yes.
We daring our sisters to check in.
Check in.
Girl, I dare you to check in.
Girl, I dare you.
Check in with find you a friend. Before you find you a friend, come up with that code word. Figure out a safe space for you to be able to check in to somebody who can literally be a listening ear and be a safe space for you. Make sure you check in and have somebody for you to check in with. Yes. And lastly, that's your assignment. Find you somebody to check in with. Find that safe space. That is the assignment for today. Yes. And outside of daring them to check in, what would you dare them to do today?
Love yourself unconditionally.
Yes.
And remember the code word, uneasy.
Uneasy.
Yes.
All right, y'all. That's the end of today's podcast. I don't even want to stop.
Let's keep going.
I don't want to stop. Oh my God. I don't want to stop, but we gotta have a part. We have to have a part 2 of this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We have to have a part 2 of this because Tiffany I might call you your Instagram name. Okay. Tiffany So Official, Tiffany Roy she's a gem, and I think that she has so much to offer us as women. And I really think that we need to embrace who God is using in this season. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having
Tiffany
me.
Roy I'm telling y'all, the Crown Her Foundation is going places, and I'm so excited to see where it's going to go. Please follow her on Tiffany Official on Instagram. Tiffany, are you on Facebook?
Yes, Tiffany Roy on Facebook and Tiffany So Official on Instagram.
Y'all heard it. Thank you so much for tuning into the Girl I Dare You podcast. I'm your host, Nahisha. Of course, you can call me Peaches, your certified Dare Diva. Y'all, please tune into this episode. This was good. This was good. Yeah. And I think and we got to have Tiffany Roy back. We have to have her back. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
I'm a Dare Diva.
Yes, she is. She's a certified Dare Diva.
Certified